What's going on, Goon Squad? Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. Today we are going to go over Darknest comps and how you can defeat Darknest easier and more efficient. I will have to migrate because a few days or tomorrow or whenever. But yeah, I'm gonna rally. But while we're waiting on that, if you guys enjoyed the video, please drop a like. Please subscribe if you haven't already. This way it helps support the channel and we can make the channel grow. And that's always a plus, guys. So let's try to make video out low. Let me see if I can. Let's see. Okay. Sorry, I know it's dark here, but the stream health is excellent now. I didn't want any freezes to happen in between me talking and teaching you guys that sort of thing. Okay, so it's unprofessional, I know, but I had to walk outside, and like I said, guys, I can't do edits or anything right now. I don't have the software hooked up. We're all live, so you're gonna have to bear with me through moments like that, but I got it fixed, and we're gonna go ahead and migrate over here. Okay, and without further ado, guys, without wasting too much of your time today, I want to say sorry to those that I told I was going to stream earlier, and I'm a little bit late to the stream, and the reason for that is I had to take my kids shopping, that sort of thing. I am my dad first before a YouTuber, so you know that comes first. But like I said, guys, drop a like, subscribe if you haven't already. Any kind of videos that you guys want to see, please ask in the comments, and I will try to make those videos happen for you guys. Okay. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into Darkness. I hate when people ramble, and I'm sorry to be that person today. But some things happen, and we adjusted to them, and they're all better now, right? So let's make this happen. All right. So first things first, guys. With the Darkness or anything like that, tomorrow I'm going to be going over more about PvP, which means attacking castles. Today is just going to be Darkness, because for one, it's got to be a shorter stream, and for two, this was requested of me. Okay, but first things first, anytime you're attacking a target, you want to make sure, if it's a strong target, make sure your war gear and your talents are set. But for lower level Darkness, you know, you don't usually have to worry about your talents. You can stay in research spec for level 1s, 2s, and 3s if you have, you know, the right gear and the power behind you to do it. So first thing you want to do is scout. Look at your scout report. What you're going to do to get the composition right, and this is going to be your easy win right here, guys. If you counter them, you are going to smash them. Okay, and what I mean by counters, for you guys that don't know, there's an easy way to see the counters, guys. You can go to your barracks, you can click grunts. Grunts will counter archers, archers will counter cavalry, and cavalry will counter infantry. Okay, and I know that off the top of my head, so I probably sped through it. So if you look at the top, it says soldier top is infantry. The counters is an arrow, which is range, and siege. You don't really worry about siege, do you? It gets countered by cavalry, traps, and a wall, right? Okay. So that kind of shows you what they're countered by and what they do counter, okay? If you don't know. But if you look at your chart here, it goes from left to right, basically. So infantry counters range, range counters cavalry, cavalry counters infantry. And that's another easy way for you to remember if you want to do it that way. But basically what you want to do, look at your total number of troops. So where it says defenders, right? You see 177,000 defenders. Okay, so let's go ahead and say, what is 50% of that, right? Just to make our math a little bit easier or whatever. We'll say it's 150,000, right? So we know that half of 100,000 is 50,000, and half of 50,000 is 25,000. So that would be 75,000 would be half of 150, right? Just just to keep it simple for you guys. So we're gonna say that around 80,000, which that's 160,000 troops. Okay, I get that, but just to keep it simple, around 80,000 troops is gonna be half of this person's comp. Okay, and if you look at their grunts and their archers, they have around 80,000 troops between the two, right? So they have basically, if you're getting technical, they got about 40,000, or I'm sorry, 40% infantry, they're 40% archers, and they're like 20% cavalry, right? So 40%, 40% is 80%, and then the 20% makes 100, right? So you're always going to come up to 100% whenever you're looking at the comp. So to counter this, what would you send, right? So we know that infantry counters ranged. So we would send 40% infantry, which will counter their 40% ranged, right? Does that make sense to you guys? If it don't, ask in the comments, okay? I'll go over it with you again in another video. I'll answer any questions. Every couple weeks, I'm going to go over questions in the comments, and we're just going to do like a Q&A type thing. So if you have any questions about anything I teach, just ask and we'll go over it, okay? So we know that infantry counters ranged. 40% infantry will counter their 40% ranged, correct? We know that cavalry counters infantry. So 40% cavalry will counter their 40% grunts, right? And we know that range counters cavalry. So that means that 20% ranged will counter their 20% cavalry, right? So we're going to do it up like this. 40, 40, 20. And we're going to run cavalry, infantry, ranged. So we're going to say 40% cavalry, infantry, and 20% range. Need 1 or 2 troops. It's only at level 1. Oops. That's supposed to say infantry, not whatever the crap that says. Or cavalry, infantry. Oops. I screwed it up again. Cavalry. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so now that we know what our counter is, we go to the target, right? We select the target. We rally attack the target. We hit OK. Heroes, guys. Okay, so we know that it's 40% infantry and cavalry and 20% ranged, right? So we need 2 infantry, 2 cavalry, 1 ranged. Anytime you're sending 40 to 50% of 1 troop, you want 2 heroes for that. So you basically want 25%, you know, per kinda, that sort of deal. So we're going to go cavalry. We're going to go cavalry because that's my highest cavalry. We're going to go infantry. We're going to go, where you at, Oathkeeper? Infantry. And we're going to go ranged. So now we have 60% cavalry attack, 60% infantry attack, and 30% ranged attack. And that looks good to me, right? You always want to focus your heroes that have attack first is the most important, and then HP, and defense dead last, okay? So whatever heroes give you attack is better, and then HP, and then defense. Now, if this was a case to where you wanted more mixed top troops rather than 2 strong tops, you could go with army attack. Like say, for instance, I didn't have Child a lot, but I did have Roast Knot. I could use Roast Knot. And another thing, always send your leader. Without your leader, you're not going to get your leader stats, okay? And I realize my leader's not in the smarts as I'm saying that, so I'm going to switch that out. Just so I'm not doing things that I'm not supposed to be doing, right? So yeah, if this was an important rally and I was worried too much about winning, I would change my leader to Child a lot, and I would send it that way because it is a stronger attack. But again, this is just for comps, and I went over that part, and that's what I wanted to go over. And I want to try to stick to the game plan, right? So now, we have 240,000 troops that we could send. So 120,000 would be 50%, right? So we're going to say 110,000 roughly is 40%, right? Roughly. We're not going to be perfect, but roughly. So that's basically, excuse me, that's basically what our comp would look like. We could go 100,000, 100,000 and bump that range up, you know, another few thousand, but it's not going to matter. And that's close enough that it's going to be okay. But if you're one of those people that like to be a perfectionist, you can go into your calculator. You can say, okay, my March is 240,000. What's 40% of that? And, you know, do it exactly if that's what you want to do. Even when you're looking at the scout reports, if you're one of those types of people, you can say, okay, there's 77,000 grunts. What percentage is that to 177,000, right? So, I mean, you could do it that way if you want to be a perfectionist, but 40, 40, 20 is pretty close to what the real comp would be. So, you know, I'm happy with that. So, again, guys, if you have any questions, I mean, that's basically how you composition any type of darkness. I mean, we can go over another one real quick if you want. Let's just scout this guy right here and see what he's working with. And we'll go over one more comp and how you would comp it. And then we're going to wrap it up because my kiddos it's late. Like I said, the stream was late and they're probably wanting to go to bed. And of course I pick one that's freaking crazy. But that's good because it helps teach, right? Okay, so we got 1.3 million troops. First thing I like to do always is figure out what's half of that, right? So 650,000 roughly would be half of that, okay? So roughly 650,000 is half. Let's see, they have 250 gladiators, 580 gladiators. We're gonna say 5, 6, 7, 8, about 900,000 infantry. That's a big chunk of their lineup, but they still have 258,000 ranged T2. They have 120,000 ranged T3. So 60, 70, 80, 380,000 ranged, and then 80,000 cavalry. So to me, if I was comping this, just to keep it very stupid simple, I would run a 70, let's see here, 70% cavalry to counter their infantry, because roughly 70% of their march is infantry. So 70% cavalry to counter their 70% infantry roughly. And 20% infantry to counter their roughly 20% ranged. And then I would throw in 10% ranged to counter their roughly 10% cavalry. So I would run a 70, 20, 10 is what would counter this. And again, that's not exact numbers, guys. I'm no mathematician, math whiz, whatever you want to call it. Most of the time when I do comps, I will have a calculator open and I will do it that way. If you guys want to do that, you can. If not, 70, 20, 10 on this is close enough, right? So again, you want to add all their infantry. They have the 250,000 plus the 581,000. That's roughly 70% of their troops. Okay, all infantry, 70% of the troops is infantry. What counters infantry? Cavalry. So you send 70% cavalry, right? And roughly 20% of their troops is ranged. What counters ranged? Infantry. So you send 20% infantry. And then 10% of their march is cavalry. What counters cavalry? Ranged. So you send 10% ranged. And that's what you would send in this comp. Now the heroes. If I was doing this, 70% of my troops are going to be cavalry. So I would send 3 cavalry heroes. Okay? And I would send 1 infantry, and 1 ranged hero, right? Why? Well, because the majority of my troops are going to be cavalry. So I want those troops to have as much punch as they can, okay? So anything over, say, 60%, you want to try to send 3 heroes with if you can. If you can't, send 2 cavalry and 1 army, just so it's adding to that cavalry, right? And if you don't have 2 cavalry, you know, send 1 cavalry and 2 army if you can. It depends if you have 2 army. And then the other 2 is going to be whatever the remaining is, okay? And again, these types of videos do tend to get a little bit confusing, and they do confuse a lot of people, and numbers is always something that's going to be a huge part of this game. Huge. This game is all stat based and number based, okay? If you can figure those numbers and stats out, you're going to do very good in this game. And the quicker you figure it out, the better off you're going to be, right? So, again, if you guys have any questions or are confused to anybody, please ask in the comments and we will go over them, okay, guys? But for now, I'm going to peace out. I'm going to put my little ones to bed. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your night. And good squad. We'll see you later.